You have done so well to get this far. Well done. Seriously, I'm so impressed. And I'm having fun. I hope you are too. I know it can seem a bit daunting at times, and we're going to be getting into more and more detail as we go on. And it is going to get harder as we go on in this course. So you need to grasp these concepts very firmly at the beginning. Otherwise, you're going to get lost. So stick with me, because this is going to be an awesome section on how we can access the DOM. In other words, how do we use JavaScript to access the DOM? Well, the starting point, and this may come as no surprise to you by now, to access the DOM, we can use the document object. We can use the document object to access the DOM. But there are two keywords there, aren't there? Document, and it's an object. But how do we prove that? Well, here's a very simple HTML page. We've actually gone through this example before. Here it is. Let's just render this to the screen. Let me just close the other example tab that we had open in the previous lecture. And let's inspect this document. Okay, we go to the console. And yes, we can just access this document straight out of the box. We've seen it. And if we open up the document, we can see all our HTML code. But this is valid HTML code. Remember, this is the closest approximation to the DOM that we have. And within our body, we can see there's our h1 tag. Simple enough. Now we have JavaScript's type of method. And that tells us what kind of variable type we're dealing with when we pass it in an argument. So let's access the type of, and let's throw in this document. And if we hit return, we can see that this document is an object. So there we go. We've proven that we can access the DOM with this document keyword. And we've also proven that it is an object. Cool. Let's jump back into the lecture. Awesome. So we've just proven that we can access the DOM with this document keyword. And we've also proven that it is an object. Now, every browser uses a DOM to allow JavaScript to access it. This is how modern browsers work. But as we mentioned in a previous lecture, different browsers do have their own DOMs. And that means they all have their own little nuances. But before you start pulling out your hair, please don't stress. They all pretty much follow the same standards. Okay, great. So we know we can use the document keyword to access the DOM. And then we can access properties of that to be more specific. For example, document.body. And to access an h1 tag, for example, we would go document.body.h1. This is all good and well, but sometimes we want more control than only accessing the document. Sometimes we want to be more specific, or sometimes we want to be more efficient at grabbing a certain element. And the good news is that the DOM API gives us many ways to access elements on our page. But yes, it all starts with this keyword document, because that is the root, or kind of the practical root of our document, of our web page. So how do we do it? Well, we access the document with that keyword. We use the dot notation, and then we use what the DOM API gives us. A very common method available to us, and what used to be used almost exclusively in the past, was getElementsById. But over the years, browsers have become better and better. So now we don't only have one method, we've got a whole lot of them. But like I mentioned, they all start with the document keyword. They all use the dot notation. And then we just have different methods depending on what you want to get. Let's just stop here quickly. Where do all these methods come from? Let's have a look. What? Where are all these methods coming from? How do we get access to all these different methods on the document? And I'm going to show you that now, but just bear in mind it is going to be, spoiler alert, from the document object, but a capital D document object. And that is different to the document here. It actually inherits from the node. Don't worry, don't get confused. We're going to be getting into a lot more detail later. But for now, I just want to show you how to find it and where to find it. So we know that those methods are on the document. And if we just type document to the console, you already know that this is defaulting a string, right? It's like us using console.log. Do you remember how to get the JSON-like format of it? That's right. We use console.dir and we pass in our document, and now we've got a whole tree-like structure of our document. Now, if we open up this document, let me actually get, you know what, let me get rid of myself in the bottom right corner because I'm going to be blocking your view. Adios. So there you go. Let me actually just expand this a little bit more so you can see. Maybe I should even zoom in for you. Is that better? So there you go. Here's our document object, and you can see that there is no get element by ID here, is there? It actually should be after F and it just goes to H. There is no get. Why? Well, I'm going to be getting into the whole hierarchy of this later, so don't stress. But you'll notice, and we'll discuss later in the course, we've got prototypes. So every single node in our document has a prototype. So we have to access this prototype, which in this case is the HTML document. Don't stress too much about it. I'm going to be getting into this later. Again, it's not within the HTML document prototype, is it? There is no get elements by ID. But if we scroll down within this object, we get to another node type, and that is the capital D document. And if we open up that, it'll be in here. Should be in here. There we go.
Whoopee!
Get elements by ID, by class name, by tag name. Woohoo! We found it! This is where they are coming from. How cool is this? Awesome, we've just seen where all of these come from. And you may be thinking at this point that that's cool, all these methods will kind of return the same object or the same type of object or an array. And I wish you were right. I wish it was that simple. Unfortunately, as developers, things can get quite convoluted. For example, get elements by ID returns an element object. The class name and the tag name return an HTML collection. The query selector, on the other hand, returns an element object, and the query selector all returns a node list. So we've got element objects, we've got HTML collections, we've got node lists. This could drive one mad. But don't stress, that's what I'm here for. I'm here to help you get ahead in a very, very quick way. So I'm going to be going over what all of these mean. And once you start actually understanding it, it does become very intuitive and it's not that intimidating. So please don't get intimidated when you see all these different types. I guess this is a very long way of saying, please don't get lost in all the detail. Just remember, the DOM is the browser's visual representation of your page. And the browser gives us access to this structure via the DOM API. And the DOM API gives us many methods we can use to access the DOM. And yes, we typically use JavaScript to execute these methods. So there you have it. It's not that intimidating. Please don't worry. Like I know when I first started coding and you start seeing all these different things, you actually feel lost. You feel very intimidated and out of your depth. But it's going to be okay. We're going to get into a lot of detail in this course. We're going to have a lot of fun on the way, and we're going to start building really cool interactive web pages. So go grab a coffee now, go relax. You've come a long way, and let's start exploring these methods in more detail. See you in the next lecture.